Welcome everybody. This is going to be a guide for new players of Everquest. I'm going to start with showing you guys how to create a character. You have the options right away to choose a male or female character. You'll see that each race has options for different classes that they can play. It typically ties in with the lore, traditionally, where Big Dumb Ogre wouldn't be able to play a Magician, and a Kind Elf wouldn't be able to play a Necromancer. You'll see we have Barbarians, Dark Elves, which are actually aligned with the Ixars, Ogres, and Trolls as part of the evil races. High Elves, Gnomes, Halflings, Humans, Wood Elves, all that kind of stuff. Ixars are obviously right there, the big addition to the server of Legacy of Norrath. They've been aligned with the evil races, and they've been placed in the hometown of the Trolls, Grob. Each race has different benefits, such as starting statistics, as well as sometimes a racial trait, such as ogres are immune from stun when they're hit in the front. Dark Elves have great night vision, etc. So, as you can see, Ixars could play a monk, a necromancer, shaman, warrior, shadow knight. We are going to practice creating a character. We're going to play a halfling ranger. That sounds pretty fun. You'll see that you can choose the starting city and the deity that they follow as well. You can also go into appearance, change the look of your old model. I'm going to go with this pretty sick mustache. If you wish, you can go to Advanced and modify the starting stats for your racing class. For my Halfling Ranger, I'm going to take a little bit out of Dex and add it to his Strength, just because Halflings start off with pretty low Strength, in my opinion. From there, we're going to choose a name. I'm just going to randomize a name for now. Pick something, and we are going to enter world. Now here we are, starting as our Halfling Ranger. You can see the UI, get a little accustomed to it, where our health, mana, and stamina bar are. Pretty much everything in the UI is movable, which is quite helpful. I'm going to close out this extended target window for now. Next, we'll look around at everything else. We have a little bar right here that gives us some basic commands: sit, stand, camp, which would be to log out. You can find different abilities you'll be able to use. Some of them are particular to your race or class, as well as combat abilities. And here's where you have social macros, such as saying you're AFK, who would be on as far as a GM. If you tab the pages forward, you can make your own. Next, you'll see our targeting window, which is above our chat window. You see that each halfling I click on will select their name, maybe some of the buffs that they have, and show their health percentage. Now, the default settings are pretty typical to most other games. We're going to use WASD to move around. You can see now we can kind of walk around this little house that we've started in, checking out all the other little halfling NPCs. Some of them are quest givers, some of them are merchants. You'll also find guards and some NPCs that don't really have a ton of use. One big part of maneuvering around is if you hold the right mouse key, you can adjust your view and move around in that fashion. You'll see the hotbar above the main chat window, where we can do things like sit and stand, which I'm going to show you right now, sitting and standing. This is especially important for regeneration. You can also change the camera by hitting F9. It'll give you a few different camera angles. You can hold down your right mouse and move around to kind of pan the camera. It takes different angles of your character. So now that we've had a good look at our pretty sick mustache, we're going to look at our inventory. So if you press I, you're going to bring up your inventory. So you see here, we have a couple items in our inventory, some food, water. We also have a starting sword and a little note that we're going to read. You can right-click items, take a look at their stats. You see that the sword has a damage and delay ratio that speaks to its how powerful it is. You can left-click it into the correct spot it goes to, or click on your class icon in the middle, and it should drop the item into the appropriate spot. So if you see these chat windows, we have several different options of ways we can chat and channels that we can chat in. You see I'm just typing in out of character, OOC, just saying hello to a couple people and being social. You can use all the different channels, such as General, which is a worldwide channel. You can speak in the newbie area, as well as auction things if you want to buy or sell them, and also speak to other people that are in your class. You're generally automatically added to a chat channel of everyone that's in your class, so you can talk about skills, if you need help with anything, questions, and also to just say hello to people and find a group. So now that you understand the social functions of the game, we're going to go back to our inventory. We're going to find that note that we see, and we're going to right-click it. Every class gets one of these notes to start. It's going to instruct you with a little bit of lore on where to find your guildmaster and what their name is. So as you see, this is the man we're looking for, and this is how you complete most quests in the game. We're going to take that note it says to bring to him, we're going to click it on the NPC, and we're going to give him the item. As you can see, he gave me a tunic for turning the quest note in, and I clicked that on my inventory, and I'm now wearing a tunic. Next, I'd like to show where the option menu is. It's in this dialog up at the top. You'll get to some general option settings you might want to change for quality of life or thing preferences that you might have, such as automatically standing up when you move if you are sitting. You can go to display options, you can show your helm or not show helms. You can turn on NPC names, which I think is a good one, so you can find NPCs a little quicker. There's several tabs at the top where you can get to different options, such as your mouse sensitivity. This is great if you need to find commands as a new player. You can see how you can access certain aspects of your UI. Also filters, and you can also change chat colors if you have a preference for your monitor screen or settings. Now that's just pretty much the basics of getting your character started, getting used to the UI, your options, turning your first guild node in. Inventory is all set up, and now it's time to pretty much go adventure in the world. Casters are pretty much all the same thing. I made a high elf magician here. You see it's same thing, we have the guild note, we have a little starting weapon, we can click things in our inventory like that. I'm going to check my guild note, see who it turned into. Oh, she's right here in front of me. Gonna hand it in and get myself a pretty neat little robe. I like to see the way things look because this is Fashion Quest, so if you hit F9 a few times, you can click on this new cool robe you've got and see how it looks. Next, as a caster, which is why I'm showing this, is you're going to want to take a look at your spells. You can hold right click just like you would an item, see what exactly they do. And then your first step is going to be to scribe these spells into your spell book. You only have to do this once for each new spell you get. So I'm going to open up my spell book. So again, I can drag pretty much everything in the UI. I'm going to click each spell into my spell book, and I've added in my 2 new spells. Now each time you die, or if you unmemorize a spell, you have to bring your spells back onto your spell bar. You've got 8 spell slots where you can add spells in, and you'll see here this little purple bar as you memorizing those spells. Also with the ROF client, you're able to go and right click on the empty spell gem and search for your spell by finding its purpose, whether it be a buff or direct damage spell or a new pet. Once you've memorized your spells, as this one completes, you do have the option to memorize the spell set, which is always pretty helpful, especially if you die early on learning the game. It'll automatically rememorize the spells in the same order. So you see I right click on there, I hit save spell set, and I'm going to call this spell set starter and save it. Now if I ever need to relearn these spells, I can right click that and load up that spell set anytime. Now casting spells can be done by clicking them off the hotbar. If you want to drag the spell icon onto your hotbar, you can simply click the spell, or you can use Alt and the number of the spell slot it's at. So Alt 1, Alt 2, whatever it might be. So for myself, I'm going to hit F1 to target myself, which is something that's always pretty helpful to know. And I'm going to buff myself with minor shielding. And my other spell is a direct damage spell to damage other monsters and NPCs, so I don't need that one quite yet. You also have the Find button, which can be useful if you're looking for a quest NPC. This is part of the ROF client as well. It's not super classic, but it is helpful for starting players. And since there is no tutorial, it will assist you in locating NPCs that your note or a quest might ask you to be looking for. So just like our ranger, once our character is created, we've gotten our bearings, we've gotten our spells memorized, and our guild note handed in, we want to head out into the world to go adventuring. So each starting city, each starting class starts in a different area. You're going to need to kind of find your way out. You can always hit M to look at the map to try to locate the way out of the city. But exploring the city is actually quite useful as well, since you'll be coming here for quite a long time and quite a few levels. So now I want to show a little combat. I've created a gnome necromancer. In my little starting area, I found a decaying gnome skeleton. I'm going to buff myself up like I did with the magician. I'm going to target the decaying gnome skeleton. I'm going to cast my spell. When you run up to the monster, your melee attack is usually set as your first hotkey, so the number 1 on your keyboard. You can also hit the letter Q, which is I think a little bit of a quicker and more efficient way to use your hotbar, so you could use 1 for something different. You'll eventually beat the skeleton down. Combat can be a little slow in the beginning levels when you don't have a ton of spells and your weapon isn't very strong, but the mobs aren't too difficult either. Once you've defeated an NPC, you can right-click them and loot the items on them. So this skeleton had some bone chips and an axe. Bone chips are very important to necromancers. They are required for you to summon your level 1 pet. So if I hold right-click and take a look at my spell, you'll see to conjure that new pet, I'm going to need some bone chips. So now that I have bone chips in my inventory, I'm going to be able to summon one. So see at the top of the screen is my cast bar. I'm starting to conjure my new pet. As a necromancer, you do get a skeleton pet, who's now spawned next to me. Jaka's pet, Janer. And you'll see a new dialog box has popped up with different commands that I can send my pet to go do. So when hunting, you're going to want to click on NPCs and see what they con, which is how difficult they would be. You see this gnome skeleton has a white circle underneath him, which means he is pretty much even with me in terms of level. Whereas you see on the right, I've also engaged a little bit later after the skeleton, a rock spider who cons yellow. Yellow means they're a higher level than me and is going to be a little bit more difficult and could potentially kill me, but we're going to give it a shot anyways. So once you've been adventuring for a bit, killing monsters, spiders, skeletons, whatever else might be in your newbie area, we're going to loot everything up, head back to town, and sell the items that we found that we don't need. It's very important, especially for casters, to stay on top of going to town and selling things, as you're going to need money to buy your new spells. As a necromancer, I'm obviously going to keep these bone chips so I can continue to summon pets. My guild leader's here, my necromancer guild leader. You'll see that he has a dialog box that shows me different skills I can learn. I'm currently using a two-handed blunt weapon I found off a skeleton, so I'm going to train it up a little bit so I hit a little harder. Also, I'm going to take some of my money and go find one of my spell vendors and find a new spell that I haven't been able to buy yet. It's a level 1 spell. I'm going to buy one, and obviously you know the deal as far as scribing it into your spell book and then memorizing it. The last character I've made is a human paladin, just starting in the town of Kinos. I'm going to run outside, because I've handled all the stuff that I've shown you before, into the newbie garden to find critters, bats, snakes, rats, all different types of stuff. The goal in the early game is really to get used to the combat system, casting your spells, memorizing, going to town, and making sure you understand all the mechanics. Just sort of speeding through here, attacking a few monsters. You can see in my inventory I have my sword equipped and a candle, my beginning tunic. I'm going to loot some stuff. But I really want to show you guys what happens when you die. So I'm going to come over here and attack a monster you see has a yellow con indicator, which means it's a little bit higher level than me. I'm going to add to my pain by attacking the skeleton also. Typically at the low level areas, a lot of these monsters aren't automatically aggressive towards you. They kind of give you a little bit of safety so you're not being attacked by everything. As you see, they kicked my butt. And I'm now going to spawn back where I originally spawned with none of my items or anything else. So what I'm going to need to do is get back to my body. I've kind of sped this up a little bit, running back through the town and locating where it was that I died. This is one of the mechanics that's always made Everquest very challenging, as you do need to balance your risk and reward if something's worth possibly dying and getting your body from a pretty scary place with none of your equipment. And there seems to be 2 players that have just invited me to join their group. They must have seen me struggling over here and died. And I'm going to quickly loot up my body and maybe go adventuring and killing some monsters with them. XP is obviously shared amongst the 3 players, and there are group XP bonuses to mitigate that. But obviously you're going to be much safer playing with different roles and different classes and bring different things to the table, as well as kill things a lot faster. Additionally, the social aspect of Everquest is what everybody remembers and keeps playing for. You're going to get to content in the game and different dungeons where you're going to need to be playing in a group, so it's great to make friends early on, level up together, and you'll have people to play with as you adventure further into the game. It really is a great game even almost 2 decades later, and there's a reason we all love it and keep playing. Farewell.